Hello, good morning. My name is Davion Fleming. I am the Director of Admissions at Lick-Wilmerding High School. We're really excited to have you here with us today for our virtual open house. Today is really just an opportunity for you to get an understanding of who we are at a really high level and understanding some of our major programs, and then of course hearing from a handful of our students at the end of our time here today. But before we kick things off, I want to introduce a couple of people on the admissions team who are here. You may have been emailing with them the past few weeks since we kicked off the admission season. But as we go through, if you haven't, as we go through the season, you'll certainly get to know them when you come on campus or as you troubleshoot parts of the admissions process. And so I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Tackett. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions here at Lick. This is the start of my 6th year, and I'm also an alum of the school. So big fan of Lick. Really glad you're all here today, and I hope the webinar is informative and enjoyable.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle DeLeon, and I'm the other Associate Director of Admissions here at Lick. Thank you so much for spending a couple of hours with us online, and hope you plan to do something fun afterwards.
Yes, for sure. Something really fun. I plan to watch football and probably take my dogs out a couple more times before the the end of the day. Okay, so nuts and bolts for today. We have a handful of different speakers for you, and so as they are speaking, perhaps things will come up. Highly encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A because after each of our speakers, we'll have an opportunity for Q&A, and I'll do my best to sort through that and answer questions from the audience. And so, yeah, whatever questions you have, it should be on the lower kind of bar of your screen. It says Q&A. You should be able to click on that and ask your questions. But now I'll introduce our first speaker. And this year we have a new head of school who I'm really, really excited about. Let's see, he was announced about this time or so last year, maybe a little bit later last year. And Raj Mundra is coming up to us from Andover. And I really appreciated his steadiness, his ability to listen, and the amount of compassion and empathy that he's shown our community. He's really just dove in to everything and is absorbing a lot at our school right now, which is a high ask, but he's taking it all in stride and I think really leading us in a really, really great direction. And so I'm going to hand things over to Raj, or Mr. Mundra, and he has some words to share with you.
Thanks, Davion, for that nice introduction. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to connect with you virtually. I hope to see you in person. Maybe I already have on some tours, but I do hope that your interest in Lick grows and that you actually come to see us on our campus, because I think that that's also a great way to learn about our program. This morning, I'd like to share with you 3 parts of the program that brought us over. My wife is a kindergarten teacher in the Bay Area, and so we're both educators. I've been teaching in public and private schools for the past 30 years, but there are 3 sort of really distinct reasons why Lick is pretty unique in at least the independent school world. And those 3 are a sense of belonging for all students is incredibly strong at Lick. The curriculum is pretty unique, and I'll just talk at a high level about some of the things that I have started to see and understand about how we learn in the classroom. And the third is our Center for Civic Engagement and our commitment to service and citizenship, and how that also actually permeates a lot of what we do. So I'll share a little bit about those, and then I'll also just talk a little bit about my journey as an educator, and sort of my values and how they align, and then we can open it up to some questions. I'm really eager. You can see the Q&A sort of tab at the bottom. If you could post your questions there, then Davion and his team will take a look, and then we'll try to get to as many as we can. So let me start off with what I feel is really most fundamental to a loving and learning community, and that's a sense of belonging. And I feel so grateful that Lick is such a diverse community, both in students and adults. And I do believe that a diverse community brings about the best types of learning outcomes. And so we have that. And I think you can palpably feel that when you come to our school, when you come to our events. And I also feel that having a strong sense of belonging opens up avenues for every person to learn more about themselves, to learn more about our complex and interconnected world, and also increases our level of empathy towards each other. When we're surrounded by a diverse set of opinions and experiences, it takes a lot to sort of facilitate that. But I feel that Lick is really, really strong in that area. If you come to Lick, you will see affinity groups for all sorts of different backgrounds and cultures and ethnicities. And the affinity groups are for students and also for families. And I think that that's an important aspect of the school, is that the families are also, we partner with families, and I believe that that's really important for every child. A sense of belonging also happens through our athletics program. We have basically open participation in the 9th and 10th grade in all of our sports. And so we will have students who have played for many years join our sports program and thrive, and we've got great coaches. And we'll also have many students just try a new sport for the first time. And I've seen some of those students try a new sport in 9th grade and then get really good during their time here, so much so that they may even sort of play on in college. We have a thriving clubs culture here as well. We just had a club fair. It must have been about 100 different clubs, and a sense of belonging in sort of shared interests is there. And there's a lot of student leadership in that area. We also have fantastic leadership and mentoring programs at the school. And so you will feel it if you are coming in as a 9th grader. And as you grow in the program, you will also become a mentor and a leader, for the younger students. And so belonging, I could go on and on about belonging, but I start there because I believe it's fundamental. And it's actually related to the second thing that I feel is a strength at Lick, which is the curriculum. And it's the head, heart, and hands curriculum. You will see that phrase, and you will certainly learn how to read better, write better, think more deeply, solve problems, design. Also, we'll hear a little bit more about our tech arts program a little bit later. And in many ways, our program will really stimulate, and I've seen it, your curiosity and your creativity in some really fantastic ways. What is unique about our program is that it really presents to students across the curriculum real world challenges. And not only presenting those challenges, but really diving deeply into how to use your knowledge to act against intolerance and injustice. And I don't know if it's uniquely Lick, but I will say it's really prominent, intentional, and throughout our program, which I believe also leads to a sense of belonging. because we admit kids who care about the world, who care about other people, who have high character and want to make a difference. And so here we have in our curriculum ways to do that. The third part, which is a real strength at Lick, is our commitment to service and citizenship. And again, you will hear much more about this when we talk about the Center for Civic Engagement. But I hope that our graduates, actually all of our students in school and also our graduates, develop an ethic of service and citizenship. And there are lots of different types of service programs that schools have. And I think that that's fantastic. When you come and learn more about our program, I do believe our program is meaningful, it's authentic, it really spends a lot of time with students trying to understand the needs of people, and also really thinking about ways in which we are learning from service. There's also great ways in which the service program is connected to our sense of belonging and our DEI work, how our service program is also really connected to our academic program. And so again, through this webinar, I hope we'll get a chance to learn more about that, and certainly on your visit. You know, my own education journey led me to Lick, and I just want to share a little bit about that. My parents were immigrants from India, and I really grew up in a bicultural way. And the environment I had in my house was actually quite distinct from my interactions at school, interactions at my public school, and then interactions at my private high school, which was a religious all-boys school. Had 1,200 boys, and there were 3 students of color, including myself. And during my high school experience, I did well in sports and in student government and in my classes, but I didn't have a great sense of belonging. And in fact, there were sort of some acts of discrimination, and sometimes I feared for my safety. And there were expectations about being a young brown Indian boy. And so that was really hard. And what made a significant difference for me was having peers and adults who really wanted to get to know me and help me feel like I belonged. And you know, that has stuck with me. And I've always looked to be a part of schools who value that, because I know how valuable that is to me. Once I started working in independent schools, I have had the opportunity to teach on 4 continents and live on 4 continents. And so I really believe that culture and access to great schools is a part of the obligation for independent schools. And I'm so proud that Lick can attract many students from many different backgrounds, and is also connected to the city of San Francisco and also the Bay Area. That's a really important part for me. I've always taught biology and coached football. And so I've had small opportunities to get into the bio classrooms here, which has been a lot of fun. And I had a chance to address our flag football team the other day, which was great as well. But I really do believe in the power of sports and arts and performances, and the magic that happens in classrooms. So you know, maybe I'll stop there. I do believe that these 3 pillars that I talked about, belonging, a meaningful curriculum, and developing habits around service, are a fantastic environment for students to be in, and families to be in as well. I've seen it now here. And I believe that these three pillars lead to a type of lifelong learning. And when we admit students at Lick, I believe in two things. We admit their families as well, and we develop a partnership, and we're together during their time here. When we also admit any student at Lick, we admit you for life. And so once you are a Lick-Wilmerding Tiger, you are one for life. I met a number of alumni the other day who really look back so fondly on their experience here and really start to understand how unique it was, and how connected they feel to the program here. So I'm very happy, although I'm new in the community. I hope you'll join me, and at least exploring more about the school. So thanks, and maybe we can open it up to some questions.
Awesome. Yes. So if you have questions for Mr. Mundra, for Raj, please put them in the Q&A, and I'll do my best to get to those. But I'll start with a question. So Raj, we've been in session now for about 5 weeks or so. And so what have you heard? What have you seen? What have you felt? Like what are the vibes on campus? I think a lot of students and families really are curious about that. So would love to hear your thoughts as a, and for lack of better terms, a frosh, right? Or a first year at Lick this year.
Yeah, sure. I was so happy to see how exciting and thrilled people were to come to school. I had actually heard that a lot of our returning students couldn't wait to the start of school. And I think the school, like all schools, have gone through some hard times in the last few years, dealing with the pandemic and what's happening, around the world. And I think that there was a real sense of community and connection to start the school year, and also for the adults to really start looking forward, and really thinking about the curriculum and teaching and learning. And so that felt great, and that's at a high level. But in the classes that I've visited, I see, sparks of curiosity. I see laughter. I see learning. I see collaboration, and that's been a lot of fun. I've seen just, when I walk around lunch, I don't see any kids eating on their own. I see groups. I see people talking. I don't necessarily see a lot of cell phones out. I see people with each other, and that says a lot, to me. And so I think it's been a really great start to the school year. We're about a month in, and so the work is ramping up, and kids are learning how to manage their time better. And so I think all the sort of normal things about school, but every morning or most mornings, I'm at the entrance and I'm welcoming students in as they come into school, and kids seem to me pretty happy about coming to school.
Awesome. I love that. I do also notice how a lot of students aren't really using their cell phones, especially at lunch, unless they're scanning a QR code to do something for a club or something like that. I have a couple questions from Alicia, and let's see here, from Christopher, and I'll kind of melt them together. So what surprised you the most about the Lick community thus far? And I'm just thinking about Lick in general. What is an area of growth or a place you really want to focus on in the next few years?
Sure. So one thing that's been, I had heard about it, how kind and generous kids are. but to feel it, when I arrived and how welcomed I was by the community was fantastic. I will say that I'm coming from a boarding school, and so most of the students, lived on campus, and we had a lot of interactions with parents, but sometimes they were at a distance. And so the interactions that I have had with so many parents here have been fantastic. It's a really strong and diverse parent body from the East Bay, from the Peninsula, from up north, from San Francisco, all over. And I think that we try really hard to bring parents together and partner with them, and parents have great leadership in the different programs that they develop also. And so that's, I don't know if that's been a surprise, but that's been just really, really great to see how involved the parents are in their kids' well-being. And frankly, we admit fantastic, kind, generous kids. And I guess what I'm saying is that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And what an opportunity for parents also to get to meet other kind, generous, quirky, talented adults as well. And so I think that that's been great. In terms of challenges for Lick, well, I'm still early stages. It's just a month ago when school started, and so I'm still learning a lot about the program. I think it's really important that we continue to share the story about Lick widely with all folks, prospective students and families, as well as alums and current students. And so I think we've been sidetracked because of the pandemic, but now I think it's an opportune time to share what we're doing. And I guess I would know more. I would feel better equipped to respond to that question maybe in 2 months after I've been here and really take some time to listen and to learn. Because we have such a diverse community, it just takes a little bit longer to understand different perspectives. So there you go.
Last question. I think this is just thinking about your time as a teacher and experience in the classroom. What's your favorite part about working with students?
I noted I've been teaching biology for about 30 years in the classroom, even amongst all the administrative positions I've held, at different schools. And I've always felt grounded, in those moments where I can share about, things related to biology that I love, I feel fascinated by, piques my curiosity. And then to see students also ask questions, to have aha moments, to try things in the lab, or to work with each other to respond to some challenging questions. I really like ethical questions. I like when students do projects that are meaningful to themselves. And so, teaching anatomy and physiology and systems, talk about diseases, or we're talking about environmental issues, things that are in your community, that you'd like to learn more about from a biological lens. And I mean, I teach biology, I teach life. And so who can't be excited about that? And so I just have a lot of fun, in the 9th grade. It's also about time management and how to take notes and how to do your homework well, how to write a lab report. So those fundamental skills also, and just seeing kids improve so much is fantastic. So those are some things that I love.
Amazing. Thanks, Raj. I really appreciate your time. You're a busy person. just helping run the school. And again, so much appreciation for this, but also all the work that you've done thus far for our school and making it a better Lick for all of our current students, but also the class of 2028 and beyond.
Great. Thanks, Daviana. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in this morning. Like I said, I feel some sort of a connection with you virtually, but I would love to see you if you have the opportunity to visit our campus, because I think that that'll give you just a different flavor of our community. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and I hope to see you soon.
Awesome. And so now we're gonna change gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about our Center for Civic Engagement and our public purpose program. So I did see some questions about service learning and different organizations that we work with. And so I hope that through this next presentation, a lot of those questions will be answered, but then of course there'll be some time set aside for you to ask these folks some specific questions as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Christy and Ravi.
Thank you, Davian. So Ravi's going to go ahead and share our presentation. Wonderful. Hello, everyone. We're going to start with just a quick introduction of ourselves. My name is Christine Godinez Jackson, and I am the director of the Center for Civic Engagement. I use she, her pronouns, and this is my 19th year at the school.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Ravi Lau. I am the Director of Public Purpose at Lick. I use he, him pronouns, and this is my second year in this position.
Next slide. And the member of our team that is not here today, but is the heart of our team, Yanni Velasquez, who's an alum of the school, is our senior associate, and this is his 5th year. Next slide. So our work is grounded in our mission, and our hope is to share with you today how our community is living our mission to be a private school with a public purpose. Next slide. So here is a brief overview of the different programs that live in the Center for Civic Engagement. As you can see, we've highlighted belonging, leadership, and public purpose. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the programs that are not shared later in our presentation, and I'll start with our Peer Connect Mentor program. This is a program that's optional for all of our 9th graders, where they're matched with a 10th, 11th, or 12th grader to be a mentor for them throughout the year. And now, while the program is optional, close to 90% of our 9th graders enroll. And every month we have a different event, really to just bring community together, joy, and have students really form new relationships. Under leadership, as Raj mentioned, we have over 110 fall clubs this year. A really important part of our clubs is our Student of Color Leadership Network that's led by our DEI department, and that is a space to really develop our affinity club leaders. We also, like most schools, have a student council, but I think what makes our student council unique are 2 different positions. The environmental chairs is a position that was created by our very own students, really wanting to bring awareness to climate change and different issues that are impacting our environment every day. And then our student inclusion chairs have been around for a number of years, but also came out of student initiative to have a voice in the different work that we were doing around inclusion, equity, and belonging. The center works regularly with a number of students outside of student council and clubs, center internship, and that is really to support our young students in developing things that they're passionate about. Maybe they want to start a nonprofit or they want to host an event. And highlighted here are just a few examples of some of the projects that we've helped our students form. We have a group of students that lead the Flight Club Aerospace that are building their own airplane and hope to share the curriculum and experience that they're writing in the future with middle school students. Next Saturday, we'll be hosting a Hyphen Hacks, which is over 12 hours, inviting Bay Area youth to come together to hack and be innovative. We also have hosted a mental health concert, and last year we did our first TEDx, where over 12 students at Lick-Wilmerding were able to talk about different ideas and things that inspire them and changes that they would like to see in the world. And under public purpose, the center blog, I really encourage you to check that out. It is a space where we post internship, volunteer opportunities, local events, how to engage in service. And what I love about this blog is that it's open to any high school Bay Area youth. It's not specific to Lick-Wilmerding. We really want to make sure that any high school youth has access to these opportunities. Now I'm going to pass it over to Ravi Lau, and he's going to get more in depth about our public purpose program.
Thank you, Christy. So just an overview here of the public purpose program by grade level. The first year, 9th grade, is really a chance to explore identity, power, and public purpose through workshops that happen over a course of 8 days spread throughout the year called our public purpose program days. And that's a chance where students really kind of are introduced to the concept of public purpose, a chance to explore our own identities, our values, and think about how do identity and values maybe impact the choices that we make out in the world, in our personal lives and in our public lives. In 10th grade, students are required to complete 40 hours of service just during the school year. We keep it during the school year to keep it fair because not all students can volunteer during the summer. Many students have to work jobs. And there's a lot of support for finding different internships and volunteer opportunities throughout the year. That's really a lot of my main role, is helping connect students to volunteer opportunities that are really meaningful. So it's not just about how many hours you do, but it's really about having an experience that will hopefully impact you. In 11th and 12th grade, students meet the public purpose requirement by participating in either many of our public purpose courses, also known as service learning courses, and I'll share some of those in a minute, or by creating their own independent study with a public purpose focus, or by continuing an internship, maybe something they discovered in 10th grade, or they're really passionate about volunteering for a certain organization. So those are the ways. That's just a brief overview of the ways that students participate in their 9th through 12th grade. This is just one example. This is Biology Honors Marine Ecology, PPP. I'm going to read a short course description and then tell you how it's connected to public service. So you might know the world's oceans are covered by over 70% of the Earth's surface and are integral to the health of the planet. A deep understanding of marine ecology is critical for the appreciation, preservation, and protection of marine habitats. So this class partners with an organization called Limpets to conduct research on the Rocky Intertidal Zone. So you can see here they're out at Pillar Point doing research. They're doing something called a vertical transect, where they're looking at all the different species that they can count and find along this one line. And this information is really important to understanding coastal health and the health of the marine ecosystem. So all of this data is collected over time, and scientists really can use it to see what's going on and understand better about our marine life. This class is community computing, and this is a really unique class started by Lizzie Brooks. Community computing is a project-based PPP class that cultivates teamwork and service in the context of software development. Students can take this course as advanced engineers or as design product managers with no prior experience. So this is really kind of open to everybody. In this course, they partner with students, 5th graders at Cobb Elementary School in San Francisco, to learn computer programs and design, and then build touch-activated tiles, which became a hallway symphony in their school. So this project really allows students to develop music, artistic, social, emotional, and technical skills, and to connect with younger students at a different school. So that's just a little clip of them in action there in the hallway. Sorry, next slide. Spanish 3 PPP is another service learning course that integrates public purpose into the course. Spanish 3 is an advanced Spanish course, so folks who have taken Spanish 1 and 2. Building on the Spanish 2 curriculum, students continue to explore differences between the indicative and the subjunctive moods throughout the year. Students read short stories, poetry, and drama within the cultural context of Spain and Latin America. And in the spring, as you can see here, they work with students at Cesar Chavez Elementary on a literacy project, reading to each other and writing and drawing together and creating literacy activities at the Lick campus. This next class is one of our another science classes, a science of compassion, also known as brain and behavior. One overarching goal of this class will be to develop empathy as a skill and enhance compassion for people with challenges, experiences, and identities different from our own. So in this course, students explore the emerging science and psychology of compassion and partner with Florence Fang Farm, as well as the Black Organic Farm in San Francisco's Bayview District, as part of their practice to cultivate compassion and engage and connect with people across age, race, class, gender, and other differences. This course highlights how the physical brain, the environment, and human behavior continually interact. And then I also want to highlight two courses that have emerged out of the center. One is Ethnic Studies, which just started last year, and the other is Leadership in Action. So the Ethnic Studies course is an introductory course designed to provide students a collective space to reflect on identity, gain acquisition around language pertaining to power and privilege, and learn about historical social movements and imagine and practice communal liberation. So this course seeks to provide students with the knowledge and skills to really kind of reflect on their own identity and think about all the systems that we engage with every day, and then to improve their own understanding of power and privilege and take action in the world. The other course, Leadership in Action, this course seeks to provide students with skills, knowledge, and practice to develop themselves as leaders. Students will study effective public speaking, learn the art of giving and receiving feedback, and spend time reflecting on their own leadership style. And their culminating project, students will draw on this experience to develop projects in the community. They really start at the Lick community, and then they go out into the neighborhood with their own creative leadership projects. I'm going to pass it back to Christy now to highlight some of our public partnerships out in the world, and we look forward to some of your questions in the Q&A section at the end.
Thank you, Ravi. When folks ask me what has kept me at Lick for so long, I always start with students, and then it's our public partnerships. For me, it really is the heart of the work that we do at Lick. Lick-Wilmerding opens up its doors free of charge to educational nonprofits and local organizations. And you can see here just a short list of some of the organizations that we partner with regularly. I'm going to take a moment to highlight a few. Aim High is an educational nonprofit that started at Lick over 30 years ago by two Lick teachers, and they offer summer programming. And they were just here this past summer, and such a joy to be part of our community. We also host District 7 Youth Council every Tuesday from 4 to 7 in the Center for Civic Engagement, where they bring together youth from District 7 to talk about policy changes that they would like to see in their community. Ravi is a member of the Ocean Avenue Association, which really allows us to know what's happening in our neighborhood and how can we be agents of change and really help our neighbors. We also hosted Tax Aid last Saturday, and we've been partnering with them for over 5 years. And what Tax Aid offers is free tax services to families whose income is below $60,000. And it's a great opportunity to connect our students with their work and also give them a shot at trying how to do your taxes. And lastly, we've been working with Westmont College for the past 5 years to have an intern with us in the center for a semester. And this is really giving a college student the opportunity to get involved in our work and to learn about education and possibly a future career. Next slide. And our partnerships go beyond just opening up our space. When a school or nonprofit, a local organization reaches out to us, we want to find ways to get our students involved in their work. One example of that is when the SFUSD librarians approached us a few years ago. They wanted to host a Comic-Con. And I said, sure, absolutely. But how can we get involved in this work? And so for the past 2 years, we've hosted the Freedom to Express Fest, and it will come back in the spring. And this is really just a great opportunity for young folks to come together, talk about social justice, celebrate the arts. In addition, Youth Art Summit is hosted by a nonprofit Youth Art Exchange every December. Youth Art Exchange used to be located at Lick-Wilmerding for over 10 years, and then they finally found their own space. But that does not mean that our partnership ended. We continue to sponsor the Youth Art Summit and work with them throughout the year to host events. Next slide. We also have been running the community tutoring program, which started over 10 years ago when Aim High approached us. Aim High previously ran their own tutoring program, but decided that they were going to do away with it. And they asked us, would you be interested in starting your own program? And we said, yes, absolutely. So we run a program every Tuesday where 5th through 8th grade middle school students from public and parochial schools can get tutored. There's enrichment classes on Thursday, and all of the tutors are Lick-Wilmerding students. I would say half of the tutors are sophomores hoping to earn their 40 hours of service, and the other half are juniors and seniors who just had a really great opportunity with tutoring. Next slide. And now I'm going to just share a few examples of our students going above and beyond their graduation requirement, really living the mission to make this world a better place. One example is San Francisco Ignite Leadership in Youth. It's a youth-led organization that coordinates leadership opportunities for middle school students. They do work on teamwork, public speaking, critical thinking, and they'll be offering classes this fall, and this program was founded by our Lick students. Then there's Hello Maker. Last year, one of our seniors really started thinking about all the resources that she had growing up, and she loved technology, and she thought, well, I'm noticing that a lot of kids don't have the same things that I've had access to. We were able to connect her with Excelsior Collaborative. She was awarded a grant for over $1,500, and she built her first maker cart. And she was able to donate one to the Mission Science Center, but also to Aptos Middle School. And the hope now is to continue building maker carts through one of our PSPP classes that you'll learn more about later today. Next slide. And finally, the Bay Area Youth Climate Summit, another initiative led by our students, really mobilizing youth to come together to fight climate change and bring awareness to what's happening in our world. So this is just a quick overview, snapshot of some of the wonderful work that we do in the center and how we're really living our mission to be a private school with a public purpose. We hope that we have a few minutes to answer any questions that you may have, but thank you so much for having us.
Amazing. Thanks for that. So again, if folks have questions, and there's some, please put them in the Q&A, but I will start with the question. And so as we were thinking about the 4-year public purpose program requirement, Ravi, can you give folks an idea of some of the things that 9th grade students are doing to help best prepare them for the work that they'll be eventually doing out in different communities?
Yeah, I love that question. Well, let's see, about a week and a half ago, we had our first round of public purpose days. And so I like to start with 9th graders with this practice of looking in and then looking out. So like before we even go off campus to do anything in the public, let's look at like who we are, like what are our identities? What does that mean? Why is that important to even think about what power I have, or maybe what power I don't have in any given context? What are my personal values? How does that influence what kind of choices I want to make in the world? So students in the first round of PPP days, they did a mix of activities reflecting on their values, reflecting on their identity. That's the looking in part. And then looking out was a chance to look at some global issues. So we watched 2 different films around climate change, with really different approaches around how they were trying to make impact, right? The films focused on different organizers and their really different strategies. And then we had a discussion about it. So the other thing that's really important is like, how do we talk with each other, given the incredible diversity of student experiences, backgrounds, values? And so really the first PPP days are a chance to practice what we call our community guidelines or community norms around conversation, around dialogue, when we have differences of opinion. Right? Are we going to convince somebody about our worldview if we're kind of hammering them, or how do we, how can we learn to listen to a different perspective? So that's one thing. And then the other PPP days for 9th graders in particular are sort of a mix of action and reflection. So last year we had a day where the whole 9th grade was out in San Francisco working on various cleaning and greening projects, partnering with San Francisco Department of Public Works to clean the neighborhood, as well as multiple different parks, Florence Fang Farm, who I mentioned earlier, the Black Organic Farm, Alamany Farm, Portola Greenway is another longtime partner where students have been working to kind of create green spaces in our urban community. So it's kind of this combination of personal reflection and then action, and always with this through line around stewardship, or another way to say that is care. So how do I care for myself? And then how do I care for others? And then what does that look like out in the world?
Excellent. Awesome. I know this isn't necessarily fully under your purview, but there is this really beautiful marriage between your department and the center, as well as our DEI department. And so could you just talk a little bit about some of the different affinity groups that exist on campus. And you spoke about, some of the mentorship that happens there, and how you all help facilitate that mentorship and leadership ultimately for our students of color in particular.
I can start. Well, first off, I, for many years, served as a director of student inclusion, and I know Ravi has done some work in equity as well. So we're already lead with a lens of equity. When we think about public purpose, it's through a social justice lens. And there's so many beautiful collaboration happening with the DEI department. So for example, and I'll get into the affinity clubs in a minute, but the student clubs, right? While the center oversees all of the clubs, our DEI department works specifically with our affinity club leaders. So that's Black Student Union, Asia, Multiracial, Latinx Unidos. And another example of that, right, is our PPP curriculum. This year, Ravi worked really closely with our director of student inclusion to develop that curriculum and think about the belonging piece and why is this work even necessary? I know our DEI department in the spring is thinking about, building in a MLK Day of Action. And so obviously we're going to be working closely with them to develop that program. We also host an annual conference, Samahara Days of Justice, which brings awareness to a different issue every year. Last year, we talked about sexual awareness and harassment. In previous years, the theme has been ethnic studies, mass incarceration. And so all of these topics, all of these conversations, I think really help all of our students, right, grow in equity work and thinking about how they can make the world a better place. In particular, with affinity groups, it's important that they have access to different leadership opportunities because they're holding such important work in the community. We have 2 additional groups on campus, AIF and FEM, which are support groups for students of color that are led by adults. And it's really important that those groups are led by adults because often we expect our students to do all the affinity work. We're like, oh, we have a BSU, but that's student run and that's wonderful. But you also have to have adults doing that work. And the last thing I'll share is we have a beautiful partnership with 6 other independent schools in San Francisco called the PACT Mentor Program, which allows our students of color to mentor younger students of color in local independent schools. Ravi, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thank you. I would just add, I think that back to the kind of reflection about our own power and privilege and our identities, we're trying to make more explicit this connection of if I know that I, for example, am a man, male identified, cisgendered, and there's a woman who's having a challenging experience, I'm writing bar, what can I do as an ally to step up in that moment and, use the power that I have, right? So that can be looked at through gender, through sexual orientation, through race, through class. So really connecting the power and privileges that we might have to our actions out in the world, right? Like stepping up and speaking out against hatred or against intolerance, that is an act of public purpose, right? It doesn't have to necessarily look like volunteering, right? You can create public purpose anywhere in the world. So that's another way that we're trying to connect diversity, equity, and inclusion practices with public purpose.
Awesome. There have been a couple of questions about demographic information that I'll share kind of at a high level right now, but around 70% of our students today, I self-identify as students of color. Around 40% of them I identify as multiracial, 48% Asian, 12% Black, 17% Latinx. As we get into some of the other groups such as Middle Eastern and Native groups, we start to get into single-digit percentages, but really robust mix of students here on campus. And there was a question around economic diversity on campus. About a third of our students are enrolled through our flexible tuition program or financial aid. And so a lot of the work that the center does is also centered around this really beautiful mix of students coming together and the different backgrounds that they have, kind of knowing and understanding that this difference creates meaningful tension that we'll have to work with our students to navigate over the course of their 4 years on campus. Christy, Rob, you talked about all these really beautiful opportunities that students have And a question from Francis was, how do you work with our young people to identify some of their interests and connect to the various opportunities for both exploration and exposure?
I love that question. Yeah, I mean, it really just starts with a one-on-one meeting. Like, let's sit down and talk about what, and as somebody who's at 13, 14, they don't necessarily, not everyone has their passion or figured out what they're interested in, and that's okay. But it's like, what are you curious about? What do you want to learn more about? What's a cause or an issue or a community that you're curious about and you're concerned about, or you maybe want to take action around, right? And so just start with there, and then maybe some logistics, like where do you live, right? Which part of the Bay Area? And then we can start looking at what is an organization that maybe might be easy for you to get to, right? That you'd be excited to go check out, right? So it's really just kind of starting with that. And I think from there, once students kind of see all the opportunities, then it's a matter of like, okay, narrowing down the options to find something that's really personally meaningful.
Yeah, and I'll just add, so I started at working in admissions. So I'm always really curious to learn more about our ninth graders. So I start with reading these profiles that our admissions team puts together to learn a little bit more about all of our incoming students, because maybe they're already involved in service or leadership. And I want to be able to approach them and say, hey, like I read that you did this, and that always excites them. I also like to reach out to students that maybe, didn't get elected to be class representative or a center intern, and to say, hey, like leadership does not have to just be in those elected positions. Like, let's figure out what is it that drives you. And it also doesn't have to happen at Lick. It can happen outside of your own community, in your own community. And so I think because we are a small enough school, it does allow us to know who are the students that are, movers and shakers, but also who are the ones that are still just trying to figure it out and may need a little guidance and support and a push to try to figure out what is it that makes them happy.
Beautiful. I'll ask you both this question, and I'm going to ask it because I think it's a fun question. And fun fact for folks, Ravi, Mr. Lau is an alum of Lick-Wilmerding High School. And so I'm losing where this question was and who asked it, but what is your favorite tradition at Lick? And so maybe this is something that has spanned the course of time since you've been working at Lick, or since you graduated, but what's one thing that sticks out in your mind right now?
That's a great question. I am an alum of Lick-Wilmerding High School, proud alum. I didn't mention that in the intro. I think, this is not necessarily unique to Lick by any means, but I think it's where we see who Lick is. And that's just our weekly community meetings, which happen in the gym. And it's a tradition. We have different traditions, different traditional community meetings each year. Like, there's always this very raucous, celebratory opening school year community meeting with lots of music and just action and whatnot. But community meetings are really a place where we see student leadership. It's often run by our co-presidents. Lots of different community leaders student leaders in the community will make announcements or do presentations. And it's really the only place where you see the incredible diversity of our school. So I would say community meeting is an ongoing tradition that I really, really love and value every week.
And for me, I instantly thought about my work with Latinx Unidos. I've been an advisor for I don't even know how long, but every year there are two events that stick out for me. It's our celebration of Dia de los Muertos and putting together an amazing offering and altar for our community to join us and celebrate folks that have passed and their families. And then at the end of the year, we do a carnaval celebration, and the students have so much joy and pride in their culture and their language and their food, and to see them come together, but also invite the entire community to join them in a salsa dance or food or whatever it is. It's those two celebrations that have just become traditions for me, Carnaval and Dia de los Muertos.
Amazing. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know we're not able to get to everyone's questions, but I hope that this can suffice for now as you begin to learn more about all of our programs and come to hopefully an in-person open house, or for sure during a campus visit during your tour, during the tour that I give to parents. But thanks again. Have a really great weekend, and we'll continue to move on.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thanks
good one.
all.
Next, we'll talk about our technical arts program, and our department chair, Samu Cortez, is here to share more about our technical arts program, or colloquially we call it the shops. And so I will pass it over to them.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. So yeah, I'm gonna share a little bit about our department and our program. So the technical arts program based learning since the beginning of our school, right? From the 1895. So we keep hand-on building at the core of our program. We teach traditional processes, but one thing that has changed is the bridging of this traditional processes and some modern fabrication processes. So we introduce students to cutting edge technology, incorporating CNCing, machines in different mediums. So our philosophy is to teach hands-on process and projects that incorporate design, engineering, and craft, all in service for connection, community, and purpose. Design is really important. So we ask students to consider form, function, but also the experience, right? You're creating an object that is going to create an experience for someone else or for you. We also, in terms of engineering, right, making math and science tangible. How can you incorporate things from other classes into these objects that we fabricate? Craft is really important. The patience, perseverance, persistence, and focusedness of making something like by hand using these traditional processes. Our entire classes teach students how to plan the projects, right? How do I plan for a long project? By planning, ideating, iterating, prototyping, getting feedback, tweaking, retweaking, and finally getting to your final design. Classroom community and collaborations are really important, and collaboration takes so many different forms, right? From teaching each other how to use different tools, giving and receiving feedback from each other, also experimenting together. It's like it's a place to just try new things. And also a lot of the things that we do cannot be done by being solo, right? A lot of times when you're welding specific angles, you need someone to help you, hold your pieces together. And so a collaboration, again, is like a core important part of our program. Making theory physical, like in this case, right, this project that the student had this vision became really a trigonometry exercise, trying to figure out the angles to make this turning ball. And so again, that connection, right, beyond just making an object is really connection with other courses, other classes. We always keep at the core getting feedback from students, right? As teachers, it's really important to get students' input so that we can take their consideration to do changes year by year, semester by semester. And also that help us to be self-aware of our own biases, right, as we're developing this curriculum. Most of our students, I would say probably 90% of the students don't have any experience. So we basically provide them like an entryway into different fields of making, and we engage with students from basically all levels of knowledge, from no experience to students with a little bit of experience or even advanced. And another thing that is really important for us is that no matter what our students are going to go to study or what field they are interested in, we believe that our classes will provide like really important tools for students to learn confidence once, and also be able to do project management in general, be applied to any field. So now I'm gonna switch a little bit and talk about the courses that we offer. So one of the things we do is we have a design and technology class. This is a required fresh class. It's an introduction to all our shops. So ninth graders begin by first of all, the first few weeks is really, how do I communicate my ideas? How can I get something from my brain into a piece of paper, into a drawing, into a prototype? And how can I do it in a collaborative shop where I need to learn how to be a good collaborator, right? Because we are a team. It's teaching them that, for me to succeed, I got to make sure that everyone in the room is succeeding with me through respect, collaboration, and self-awareness. And at the same time, using the equipment safely as we are modeling, as we are planning, as we are revising and building three-dimensional objects together. So again, the beginning is prototyping, drawing, community building, really important. Then we move on into introducing students to Rhinoceros 3D, which is a 3D software. Students learn this program by completing a few tutorials and then actually have creative projects where they have to apply knowledge learned. In this case, it's drawing from life. Students pick a specific object that they have a connection with or that they are interested in its shape, make a one-to-one visual drawing, took measurements and recreated in Rhino one-to-one ratio. Along with that, we have other creative projects that are more like using your creativity to the maximum, right? Like imagine a piece of furniture from like in 100 years, what would it look like? And then the final thing is to design a glowing object that incorporates metal, wood, acrylic, and is going to have a LED light, a circuit board that they're going to be designing. So in this case, students have the freedom of designing almost anything they want, except for the limitations of materials and the type of materials they'll be using. So because of the freedom that we provide, objects or these glowing objects become completely different, right? As you can see in the following pictures, it all depends on student interests and bringing that together. We see ourselves as coaches in a way, just helping students get to their goal, their design. For instance, in this case, these two students are really into birds. They do bird watching, they do photography, and so we really encourage them to bring their interest into the project. The ninth grader class culminates with a walk-in gallery where students get to see what other peers made. At the same time, we do a reflection of how was it like to build something right from scratch, from a drawing, from a prototype, a sketch, to the final culminating piece, and what were the challenges? What did they learn from this process? Which I think is really great for them to learn. And hopefully they also will learn a little bit about what is possible to make in all of the shops. Then we move into our elective courses. This is for upperclassmen. So we have two categories, design and engineering, design and craft. The students are required to take one semester long class from each of the categories. We really want students to explore, right? Because a lot of times, like you might think that you're really into, for example, graphics and game design, and you might want to just take that class. But by not kind of taking that leap into taking maybe jewelry one, you would have never known that you actually love jewelry making. So really pushing students to try things out. So our design and engineering classes are the following. Graphics and game design. So it's an introduction to essentially using computer programming to create innovative and amazing practical uses of computer science and creative projects. So their first project is a pattern. For this, actually but they research a little bit about textiles. What are textiles? Like what are some tensions in the textile industry? How do we create patterns? And they digitally create patterns. This class mainly uses JavaScripting, and they use the P5Js library. Then the first project, once they complete their pattern, right, they will actually print it in actual fabric, and they will create a tangible object. So in this case, a student created like a little blanket for their sibling. So the goal again is bridging the technological approaches and also traditional processes, and trying to get students, even though it's coding, right, to get them to create something physical. The second project we create is a online game. This is a collaborative project where students have to think about what is the theme of my game, create their own graphics, and then program it. Basically, it takes about half a semester for them to complete it. The next thing is computing. This is our one of our public purpose classes, where it's an advanced computing class where students go to local elementary schools to teach coding lessons to 4th and 5th graders. The second part of the class is students actually ask our community what are some of the needs for technological uses, such as websites or apps that will benefit our community. And in teams, they actually work together to make them a reality. So I know in the past they have made like a website for the LSC Center or their Learning Strategy Center. Another class is Circuits and Electronics. It's a class called Analog and Digital. So students learn a little bit of both analog and digital processes. Their goal is to create an amplifier. The first part of this class is to actually create their own circuit board. So as a group, they will create their own circuit board. They will get it figured out. And then each one of them will create an amplifier or speaker. They have, again, freedom to decide what their speaker is going to look like. They got to think about form and, again, the experience. What are you trying to say with the speaker? What is the theme of your speaker? And at the end, we have completely different designs, as you can see. And our next class is device invention. This is a really interesting class where we ask students to consider the tensions and possibilities of being a designer and a creator of technologically driven inventions. So the idea is collecting data, right? And then creating a visual to illustrate that data. So for example, in this group, what they decided to do is 3D print a map of San Francisco and collecting live data of Muni. So each of the LED lights that you're seeing actually moves as the Muni buses move throughout the city. Then our next class is 3D printing and parametric design. It's an introduction to 3D printing and also an introduction to parametric design using a plugin called Grasshopper 3D. So it's a visual scripting language where students can manipulate geometry and essentially create parametric design using these codes to fabricate objects. And those objects are mainly fabricated through 3D printing. So students also learn how to troubleshoot the printer, right? What happens when the extruder gets clogged? What happens when the print doesn't work, right? What affects my prints? And then we'll move on to design and craft. So this is where we have a few other classes. We have rethinking furniture, which will be an advanced metal class essentially from the 9th grade class. But not just metal, it's more about design, and it's all about designing an experience, right? So when we are thinking about furniture, right, we're creating an object, but beyond an object, we are creating a seating experience for someone. So we really emphasize that in this class. Students, again, have the freedom to do so by working in teams. They learn more advanced tools. So some of them actually learn TIG welding. Some of them use the forge, like whatever tools are necessary to basically bring their design to life. They have to think about the angle, right? Like what kind of sitting experience do I want to design? Like, do I want people to be comfortable? Do I want them to only sit for 5 minutes and then get up? Is this going to be in a public setting? And really taking those into considerations. In this case, right, like it's play. Like I want it to be an experience of play. And our next class is wood joinery and turning. In this class, students are introduced to the lathe. So this is the first time students can use the lathe to turn something. So we introduce what we call segmented turning, like the elephant that I point out at the beginning of the class. So again, students have the freedom to kind of create almost anything as long as they introduce or include turning and also joinery. So some students make really intricate projects or boxes, creating inlays, using a little bit of both traditional processes, but some of them also use the CNC router, right? So again, the bridging of the two. So you can see some of these more traditional turning projects. Students are able to feel confident using all of our tools, and also incorporating multiple what they learn in other classes. For example, this lighthouse, the bottom piece was designed using Grasshopper because the student took that class before. So incorporating what they learn in other classes is also important. Some projects are really long, right? In this case, the student created a guitar from scratch. And I'm just gonna speed up a little bit, but we also have jewelry and metal arts, is learning about the traditional metalsmithing, jewelry making using copper, brass, and silver. Really learning the craft of that. We also have another class that is a wearables class where students learn how to make something from what are they called? Templates, right? So for making a garment, we really need to plan it out, right? How can you make something two-dimensional into three-dimensional? Because learning the techniques of sewing and then making something wearable, something that you're gonna be wearing. And then students really can be as creative as they can. Sometimes they repurpose also some clothes and really transforming and looking at how these garments, are going to also design an experience. The next class is our public purpose class, or PSPP. This is a public purpose class where students are actually partner, and this also is in collaboration with the center. Students are partnered to a specific organization. Students learn how to work with a client, right? They meet with them about their needs, what is needed from this organization, how can I help you? And they design what they're asked for. Once they design it in Rhino, they have another meeting with their client. Once the design gets approved, they fabricate it in groups. And then the final phase is to actually deliver what they created. So in the past, collaborated with La Cocina, right? Making like those little carts. Excelsior's works too, creating the shelving, tables, like kind of projects really range, and it all depends on our clients. So students really learn about project management and how to work with clients, like how to design for someone else, right? When it's not going to be your design, any changes you make is based on your client. So more of those. We also bring guests in this case, students actually got to remotely control this robot at Boston Dynamics. So the students were actually controlling the robot from Lick to make it happen. And to get an idea of how it works. We also keep alumni connections. So in this case, one of our alumni who works at Carbon, a 3D printing company, work in designing that. They actually to talk about the entire process of how they got to where they are and how Lick was a stepping stone into what they're doing today. There's another alumni, Andrew, who is making these devices for surgery. And I'm gonna just, show you more of those alumni connections that are really important for us to show students how our program can actually, again, be the stepping stone into design and technology. And I'm gonna leave you just with a few quotes from some of our alumni and how our program has really teach them about designing and problem solving in their area of study, and how really like help them like beyond just making, but in other classes. And I know that was a lot of information, but that's what I have. Thank you.
Excellent. Again, if folks have questions, please put them in the Q&A, and there's a handful in here, but as always, I'll start with a question that I have. And I asked you this some time ago, but I really loved your answer, and I would love it if you could share. But thinking about students who we traditionally wouldn't see within like the tech art spaces, you know, whether that is female identifying students, non-binary identifying students, and students of color. How do you think, or how is your department thinking about helping those students feel confident and comfortable within these spaces to, after their ninth grade experience, continue on taking additional electives in tech arts?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I think that's actually really an important question, and we keep this in mind. So the first thing is representation, definitely as teachers. The second thing is really understanding that as a ninth grader, making sure that every single student feels comfortable with the tools. So for us, it's really important that whenever we are, for example, demoing a tool, who are we asking to step in and try the tool, right? And also, how can we meet with the students to get their interest, right? Because it starts with an interest, right? What are you into? And how can I bring that into my course? So for the NT especially, that's important, right? So meeting with students from all identifiers and being like, what is one of your interests and how can I make this into a glowing object, right? And that's the beginning. Once students really bring themselves into it and see themselves through the project, I think that's basically the beginning of getting into the tools. We're also always making sure students are self-aware of their common identifiers, and we do that as a ninth grader, like how much space I'm taking. Like, am I making space for everyone in my class? And if someone is not speaking up, how can I engage them? Or if someone is taking too much space, how can I intervene and like straight up tell them, like, you're taking too much space. So I think it all begins in ninth grade. That's part of our goal, actually, to teach students how can we communicate respectfully and be aware of our identifiers, especially in this space.
Awesome, thanks for that. And this question is coming from Ruhan. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name right. But in what ways is your department, and perhaps if you know about other departments, in what ways are they incorporating artificial intelligence or AI into the curriculum?
Yeah, so I know in my department, we see technology as like an aid. So there are its complications, and one of the things we also teach students is how technology has its own biases. So whoever is designing this technology also basically a lot of times it includes those biases. So one of the ways I know that graphics and game design, we actually encourage them to use things such as ChatGPT. Like, let's see what happens. Like, can we ask ChatGPT to create a grasshopper code? All right, what is it giving me? And what would I do different? So using them as a tool, I think that's the main way that right now we're doing it. So teaching students like, yeah, technology can be both, right? It can be used to help the world, and it can be used against it to some kind of way. So how can we question it? Yeah, so so far that's how we've been doing it. So encouraging students to bring it in.
Awesome. Speaking of coding, Sienna is curious if you know how many students are coding, and maybe there's a rough estimate that you can give us.
I don't have that number. I know that every year we get more students with more coding experience. So that's something that our department is actually also aware of, that as the technology advances, we also have to change our curriculum. So I would say most of the students actually that we get, I would say probably right now, probably about 40% of incoming fresh probably have coded to some degree. But then there's another percentage that has never actually coded before. So our curriculum is made in a way that students who have experience can also kind of engage in our curriculum and learn, but also students who have no experience not to be like dismissed from going into that field.
Great. There's a question around just preparing portfolios. And so what are the ways in which faculty work with students to help build portfolios for whatever they choose to do next after their Lick experience.
So Davian, is the question is kind of how do we help students with portfolios?
Yeah, so how do we help them build those portfolios for, maybe it's for an internship, maybe it's for a job after high school, maybe it's for college, but how do we work with students to build those?
So a lot of times it's actually one-to-one meeting with the students. So we had a few students who, especially like a lot of times they want to get into an internship and they're given a specific project. So usually we meet with them about, okay, what is the project? What is your idea? And providing feedback. All right. So if, for example, I had a student who, for a college actually application, had to create a device that would be attached to a phone to manipulate actually the light from a phone. So it was like meeting with the student. All right, what is your project? What is your idea? And then actually the student had a really common idea of just making a lampshade. So I questioned it. I'm like, why did you create that? Like, how are you representing yourself with this project? And so getting the student to actually go beyond that, right? Like, I not just going to your first idea, but questioning them and making sure they're aware that, with a lot of these portfolios, right, you are also showing yourself. So it's not just like I made this table. What about that table is you, and how can you show that? Or I make this bowl. All right, like what about that bowl? What is that bowl saying about your knowledge of the tools, but also your critical thinking? So a lot of times that's what happens, is just one-on-one meeting with students who are hoping to go into these fields.
Awesome. Let's see here. Last question for you. Can you just talk a little bit about support for students outside of their normal class schedule? Like, perhaps a student has an idea for another class, or maybe they need extra time to work on something. What are the ways in which your department supports students outside of the kind of normal class schedule?
So it's a little bit different for Frosh and upperclassmen. For Frosh students, we especially at the beginning when they're getting an introduction to Rhino 3D, it can be really challenging. So we have what we call Rhino Cafe, which is during lunch, students can come and any of the faculty from our program can help them troubleshoot homework, but also a lot of times it's actually a group of students. So it's usually not one, but it's let's say 3 or 4, they come to what we call Rhino Cafe, and the students help each other out. And at the same time, we are there to support them and to help them out. Another way is tutorials. So the school has tutorials where it's essentially free time where students can go to different teachers. So during those times, we have the shops open. So students can just come in, and the number one rule is just to check in with the teacher before turning on a machine. So we make sure safety is the most important thing. Also during free blocks. So every shop is usually free during 1 or 2 blocks. So students who are free during those times can come to the shops, and there will be, any of the tech arts faculties there to just supervise in terms of safety and to help whenever they have questions. Those are mainly it. Things like the PSPP program. So a lot of those projects are bigger. So a lot of times we actually have had Saturdays where students come and work on those projects. For example, I know last year we had 5-6 tables with 6 chairs for this one community center. So it was a lot of work that it was hard to get just during school hours. So there are times when we ask students to come on Saturdays, but again, that's mainly for the PSPP program that has bigger projects.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time this morning and all of the questions. I thought it was really great and a really awesome example of how our students truly are just hands-on, right? In the different ways that they can build skills that will definitely be applicable and help them impact different communities in the world outside of the Lick walls. So thank you, Samu. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so before our students come on, I just wanted to share a couple of important dates with everyone and to answer any questions regarding admissions before our students come on. So I'll share my screen really quickly. And so this is just for everyone to note that our second wave of shadow visits is open on October 11th after 6:30 p.m. And so I know right now there is a waiting list and or all of our spots are filled, but just know that we will open up another few hundred spots for folks to be able to find a time. If after that date you're really having trouble finding a time or a space to come visit campus, please let us know so that we can do our best to figure out a time one-on-one with your family. On November 11th, our Cub Conversations open up. And so our Cub Conversations are essentially our student interviews. And this is an opportunity for us to get to learn a little bit more about your child and for them to ask us questions in person. On December 1, we have our courtesy submission date. And so this is just encouraging you parents to submit part 1 of the application. Part 1 of the application is really just questions for you, and submitting part 1 of the application opens up the opportunity to register for a Cub Conversation or an interview. And then finally, our application deadline is January 9th, 2024. And so we don't need everything until that date, but I do encourage you to, have that date in mind, especially because a lot of our peer schools have a similar application deadline. So doing your best to space out going to events and spacing out things like essays, etc. And so if you have questions about any one of these, or if you have questions about our events, please let us know. Everything should be on Ravenna, for any of our virtual events, any of our in-person events, all that information should be there. But if you're having trouble, again, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'll also make a plug for our Connect with a Tiger Ambassador program. And so that information can also be found online, where you'll have an opportunity to be connected with one of our volunteers, one of our student ambassadors, to speak with them via phone or via email about specific questions that you may have. And so maybe you play water polo and you're really interested in the water polo team at Lick. And so we'll do our best to find one of our ambassadors who plays water polo so that you can connect with them personally and ask them more in-depth questions and the kind of nuts and bolts of that specific program or that specific interest that you may have. And so a huge plug for that, and highly encourage folks to utilize that. And that can be found both on our website, on our Explorer page, as well as on Ravenna. But now I believe all of our students are on and available to ask questions. So if you all can turn on your cameras and maybe unmute yourselves, but we'll see. But I'll have you each introduce yourselves. And so when you introduce yourselves, can you share your name, your grade, pronouns, what middle school you went to, and finally, what your favorite class is at Lick, what's been so far. So those things. And if you miss something, I'll remind you. Let's see. Ernesto, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, of course. How's everyone doing today? So like Davion said, my name's Ernesto. My pronouns are he, him. Yeah, it's great to be here. 2 questions, and then I come from Gateway Middle School. And yeah, favorite classes, right? That was the question.
Yeah, what's your favorite class has been so far?
Oh, I would say chemistry. Chemistry so far has been a good time. I thought I wouldn't like it so much, but it's been great. We've been doing a lot of labs, a lot of experiments, and right now we're going to write up a lab report, but it's a lot of work. It's very tedious, but we're having a good time and I'm enjoying it.
Taya, why don't you go?
Hi, I'm Taya. I'm a sophomore. I use she, her pronouns. I came from Presidio Hill School, the middle school there. And my favorite class would probably be wood joinery and turning right now because it's a shops class. It's very hands-on, and I never really thought I would enjoy wood, but it's incredible to know what you can do with literally like just a tree. And it's something I didn't think I would be doing in high school.
Awesome. Briggs.
Hi, my name is Briggs Klein. I go by he, him pronouns. I went to AE Kent Middle School, which is public school Marin. And my favorite class right now is definitely rethinking furniture. So it's a shops class where you get to design a piece of furniture and you actually get to build it. So like we built a budget list, and like right now we're in the process of making it. It's a lot of fun hands-on learning with the shops materials and the different machines in the shop, and it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Tarek.
Hello, my name is Tarek Wilkes, and I am a sophomore at Lick-Wilmerding. And also pronouns he, him. I used to go to St. Paul's Episcopal School in Oakland. And I'd say my favorite class right now is Spanish 2 Accelerated, just because I think learning a second language has always been something I was interested in. And I feel like being able to use that language in like public areas like volunteering has really been a help for me. So being able to take a class that not only teaches me that, but also is kind of speeding me up has been really nice. So.
Awesome. Olivia, are you able to share?
I am. Apologies everyone, I just got back from a run, so I got stuck in some traffic. But my name's Olivia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a junior and I went to Crocker Middle School down in the peninsula. And then some of my favorite classes, I took architecture last year, and you also kind of take it freshman year in CMA, and that was in a really amazing class. I mean, Lick has one of the only architecture programs, so you get to do a lot of like modeling, drawing, and it's a super fun class.
Awesome, great. I have a question for maybe three of you can answer this. Let's see, the question is from Andrea. And the question is, what's the social climate at Lick among students? And what are different types of events that happen, like different dances, or different kind of special days that we have on campus?
I'll go first. So basically the social climate it's really supportive and welcoming. And like when you first walk in as freshman, it's like, it's your freshman year of high school. It's a little like kind of scary. You're kind of working out the kinks, you're meeting new people. But like I find that it's really easy to find people that you really get along with, and you make really great connections early. And you get those through so there's all these sporting events that we do. And then there is these dances. I think we have the winter formal and the spring formal. And I'm not sure the other one, but those are a lot of fun. And then we also have these things called TGIFs, where it's like, maybe Lick might someday, like you might show up to school and there's like a bouncy house in the courtyard. So you kind of get to run through with your friends. And it's like these fun kind of experiences that like throughout your day kind of breaks up the monotony of like a week of school. And it like really helps you build community and connections.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll add a little bit on to Briggs. We, like you said, we have like the CGIF. It's usually once a month where the school just organizes an event, and the whole school has a good fun time, usually around lunchtime. And apart from that, I would say kind of looking on the academic aspects, Lick has a very strong culture of helping each other out. So if a student is struggling, maybe in one class, everyone is welcome to sort of collaborate with each other and to work with each other, right? And to get through a class together. That's another part of the culture on the academic aspect, is that most students aren't afraid to ask questions to each other, because we're here in a space to learn. And that's what we're doing, that aspect of, working together, collaboration, and growing as a community.
I would also like to add on a little bit about mainly clubs. I feel like clubs are like one of the biggest things at Lick when it comes to meeting new people, not just when you're a freshman meeting other freshmen, but also upperclassmen too. There's a mix of clubs depending on like whatever you're interested in, like D&D, or there's also like affinity groups like MAC or BSU. But yeah, it's really just about finding clubs that you think have like your main interests, and then finding people who are also interested in those. But yeah, just in general about Lick, I think Lick, at least personally for me, has been one of the most like open spaces I've been in. There's very little to like no judgment when it comes to meeting new people. Everyone here is supportive. If you need help on homework, they'll usually be there to help you or support you. And yeah, everyone's looking out for each other. So
Amazing. How about Tan and Olivia, you answer this question, because you both are really involved in a lot of things, and Tarek just spoke really well about clubs and all the things that you can involved in. And so how do you try to balance all of your extracurricular things, whether that's clubs or sports or student council, and your schoolwork?
For me, this year, the first thing I did was I took 2 frees instead of just 1, so that I would have time. I'm a leader of the Multiracial Alliance Club, so I could focus on that. And I'm also part of cross country, and I'm part of Hyphen Hacks, which is a like club kind of planning a hackathon right now. And yeah, there's you have a kind of flexibility with your schedule, and there's a lot of tutorial times. And then there's also a lot of people who, like seniors or juniors or even just teachers, who have dealt with a lot of busy schedules and are willing and want to give you advice on that. And so like last year, like coming in from a school that was more like relaxed and I didn't have as much work as Lick did, it was an adjustment to go from, like 1 hour of homework to a night to like, 2-3 hours. But there's just like teachers are very understanding, and there's a lot of resources, and there are so many opportunities that I want to take. But like everyone who's offering opportunities knows that we're all balancing a lot. And so there's a lot of kind of grace for kind of to make a mistake or to maybe like miss one thing, but like, because everyone knows you're trying your best and you want to bring your best self, and you're going to bounce back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can add on to that. So like Taya, I'm involved in sports like cross country and track, and then like student council and whatnot. And then you're also trying to balance like your academic schoolwork and just also like social time. And so that was more difficult for me freshman year with like time management and everything. I think now that I'm a junior, I've learned a lot how to like use my time more effectively. So like using my free blocks more well. And like Taya said, teachers are super understanding. So like if I have a meet on some day, I can always talk to them about maybe like pushing back a day, and they're very understanding. And I also think Lick does a great job in terms of transitioning just from middle school to freshman year, and as like slowly building up the workload, so that now that I'm a junior, even though I'm probably doing a lot more work than I was a couple years ago, it doesn't seem like that big of a transition.
Awesome. I want to do a quick poll with you all, with the 5 of you. Could you just share really quickly how you get to school? what mode or methods of transportation you use to get to school.
Yeah. Oh, breaks. Go for
Oh,
it.
Ernesto, it's all
No,
you.
no, please.
Yeah. So freshman year, I used to actually take ferry and BART to school because I live in Marin, and but this year, since I got my driver's license, I'm able to drive myself to school.
Yeah, so I live in the city, not too far from Lick. I live close to 24th BART station, so I usually take that to school, but sometimes my mom drives me because I'm close by. It's my way of moving.
It's kind of a mix for me. I'll either carpool because a lot of people live near me. My parents will drive me a couple of days a week, or I'll take the bus. Kind of just dependent on the mood.
Yeah, I live down in the peninsula, and so I usually will carpool. There's a couple other kids who came from my middle school that I'll go with.
For me, usually I just take BART. I live in Oakland, so my BART ride is usually around like 30 to 35 minutes. And if my friends are willing to, or friends of my sister, we'll just take carpool. So
Nice. So for our BART users, can you just talk a little bit about that experience and also talk about how that impacts or how you feel that impacts your social life at Lick?
Sorry.
oh, you can go. You can go. Yeah.
I was not gonna do this again. You can go.
I'd say when it comes to how BART like affects my social life, I think it's a little annoying, I gotta admit, having to like ride like maybe like an hour towards like Japantown to hang out with my friends, or even just like 30 minutes to get down to school and hang out like near the area. So I'd say that's why like kind of at the start of the year, I tried to find other kids who lived around me, like other Oakland kids, so that I wouldn't have to go as far if I ever wanted to just like hang out near someone and just take like a 10-minute walk or like 15-minute drive. But overall, like I think after you start to learn how to like really use transportation, like other than BART, like learning like how to use like Muni, you don't really think that it is much of like a burden on you. It's more of just like, okay, let's plan it out well. Let's make sure we have an extra like hour just in case BART is like slow, or if my train isn't coming. So yeah, I think it's really just about planning it correctly. So
Yeah, so I would say so this is more fresh. I mean, even now I usually take ferry and BART a couple of days. But what I found is that like taking the ferry alone is like it gives me a nice they gave me a nice time where I could just get some homework done or just like, be alone, listen to music, just hang out. But on BART, what I found is that like a lot of the time, since a lot of students from like are taking BART, it was like, like an early morning thing that it's like you get to run into people that you might have in like your Spanish class who you wouldn't necessarily go hang out with after school, and like you end up like meeting like people that you wouldn't have otherwise on public transportation. And then kind of adding on to what Tarek said, since I lived there's a lot of people from Marin, so like me like having to figure it out, it's just like you take a couple extra steps of planning. You have to like it takes a little bit more than just like, hey, let's go hang out at my house. And it's like, oh, well, I have a ferry I have to catch at like 6:45. But I think like, I think that's something that's more specific to me, but it's like, you can over time kind of figure out ways to get around it and use it as a tool to help connect more with people that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Awesome. Ernesto and Taya, I would love to hear about just your experiences transitioning to Lick. What were some specific challenges you encountered, and how do you feel Lick supported you to get over and through those challenges when they occurred?
I can go first, if you don't mind. So I came from Gateway Middle School, which was a charter school, but mostly it was definitely public funded. And through that system, most of my classes looked like 30, 40 students sometimes. And like transitioning to Lick, where most classes were around like 15, 16 students, that was definitely a shift, but it was a positive shift. That's something I wanted. I wanted to be in a class environment where I could get a little bit more support from my teacher because of smaller class sizes, right? And I think the challenge that I didn't really realize at that point was that sort of coming into Lick, there's definitely a higher standard of academic rigor, right? Like a lot of teachers are expecting us to do very well, and we do. We are motivated students who want to do our best. But definitely, I think eventually I was like taking 7, 8 classes my first year, and that got to me. I was like struggling a lot. My middle school didn't cover all the topics that I needed for some of my math classes or some other classes, math and science and Lick. But I think what helped me a lot was the math cafes and other cafes like science cafes where teachers would open up the space for students that have questions, students that are struggling to come to them and sort of like share their inquiries so that the teachers can sort of have a little bit more time with that student and help them through, I guess, that maybe math problem or something that they're struggling with. And that's really what helped me better transition to Lick, better transition to an environment that expected a little bit more from me, which I did my best. But definitely having that math tutorial, math cafe was the best way I could sort of integrate into this new environment and maybe new standard of education for me.
Yeah, for me, like I mentioned before, there was like a step up going into high school with the workload. I also came from a very small middle school. There's about like 27 kids in my grade. So from going to 27 to 142 was an adjustment socially. But what really helped me was actually the cross country team. I made a lot of friends across grades and then also like in other classes and then like meeting friends from friends, just being able, a lot of people here are like eager to create community just anywhere and like broaden their circles and their networks. And so it was helpful to especially have like upperclassmen friends who could like guide me through the beginnings of frosh year. And then also like I said, there's a lot of resources. Last year, I met with like the mental health counselors sometimes, just to like kind of like keep the community, kind of like just have a lot of people, like point people to talk to. And I met with my teachers a lot. I just had to like become very comfortable with the community and like know that I belonged there because everyone had this space for me to be in, and I just had to take that up and ask for help. I mean, it was a process, but it was a very exciting and like growthful isn't a word, but like full of growth. Like with public transportation, for example, I was very scared of taking that when I first came here, but like an upperclassman showed me how to take that. And then now I take the bus a lot, and now I'm teaching the freshmen how to take that. And it's just, there's so many different ways, like a lot of students grow in like the same ways, like whether it's public transportation or learning how to deal with the workload. But you bond over that growth together and you can make really cool relationships.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, both of you. Olivia, can you walk folks through the daily schedule? Like what does that look like from a day-to-day basis? And perhaps you can share that through the lens of your personal experience. So ranging from the time school starts, I guess the how our schedule is configured, through cross country or track, and then talk a little bit about the workload and the types of homework that you may get on a daily basis.
Yeah, totally. So school starts at 8:50 every day, and so I'll usually wake up around 7:30 and carpool and get to school then. And then we have like 4 classes each day, or 4 blocks. One of those might be a free block. And so I'll go to my class in the morning, and then after your first class, you might have like a tutorial block if you want to do homework, or perhaps there might be like a club meeting. So I might have like Girls in Tech Club meeting or like an Asia Affinity Club meeting. something like that. And then I'll have another one of my classes. The tutorial block will either fall after my first block or my second block. And usually that second time block, like Friday, we just had a community meeting during that block where we met as a whole school, had some announcements, did some games. And then lunch will be sometimes more meetings. So since I'm part of SUCO, usually we have meetings about twice a rotation, and we have like a 8-day rotation schedule. And then yeah, and then I'll have my 2 afternoon classes, and I'll probably, yeah, like I said, have my free block sometime in the day, and then I'll go to cross country practice or track in the spring. And that's like my favorite part of the day, is just getting to go to my sport. And like Taya was saying, it's such a good community. All the sports teams and theater and stuff really are. And then that will probably finish around 5:30-ish. And so I'll get back home around like 6 o'clock, and then I do have to like kind of like start homework then, or like dinner and then homework. But it also helps, I've realized, doing a lot of homework throughout the day. So through my tutorial block or like lunch block or free, and getting as much homework done then, so that after, when I get home, it's not super stressful. But yeah, I'll have a couple hours of homework then. And yeah, that's kind of the day-to-day. The 8-day rotation can sound very confusing, I know, but it's actually pretty nice and simple when you break it down, especially because like since the classes kind of rotate in order, you're not stuck with like math every single morning. You kind of can switch which classes you have. And so yeah.
Very cool. Thanks for that. Let's see. One question that folks have been asking is, what's something that you would change or perhaps improve at Lick? And so maybe a couple of you could answer that question. What would you change or improve?
I can start us off again. I think that something that Lick has been working on a lot recently, and that obviously can continue to be improved, is just communication between like admin and the student body. And as someone part of STUCO, that's something we're really focusing on this year, is like a lot of times maybe STUCO will be working on something or admin will be working on something, and but the student body doesn't actually know about it. So we'll have like classmates come up to me and be like, well, what is Lick doing about XYZ? And I'll be like, well, we actually are like thinking about the subject, or admin is actually talking about it, but that's just not directly communicated to the student body. And so just always being more transparent with like what's going on, and so that everyone keeps updated.
One more person.
Yeah, I go next. So I'm sure many of you probably have heard one of the Lick's motto is head, heart, and hands. So we take well, no, the one I was thinking is public skills for a purpose, right? Is like sort of the idea of taking stuff we've learned in Lick and sort of applying it outside into our environment and creating positive impact. So this year I'm currently a center intern, specifically for a program called PPP, which is a big part of Lick, for known as public purpose program, of encouraging students to engage with their community. And although that is the goal, right, at Lick, sort of like taking these skills we learned here and take it out, a lot of students do see it as a requirement, especially for sophomore year, where it's like 40 hours of PPP requirement, right? And I think we definitely, as a community, need to work on more of changing the idea of it being a requirement and more of a opportunity for learning. And that's what Lick is trying to get to, right? Is like taking the skills we learn, applying them to an environment that we want to impact for change, but also getting something back from it as a learning experience. And that is related to PPP and other such events where Lick guides students to, participate in the community. And I think that's what we need to change, is that culture around, 40 hours, I got to somehow figure out how to get this done as a requirement. But like I was saying, like creating that idea, that concept that we are doing this public service as an opportunity of learning, an opportunity of giving back, an opportunity of sort of taking in a new experience and learning from others. So that's something for me that I think we can improve on, and we're working towards it, and hopefully we can do some change.
Awesome, thanks for that. Taya, Briggs, and Tarek, you get the easy question. What's your favorite thing about Lick or the Lick community?
I would definitely say the supportiveness of everyone. Kind of adding on, since I came from a school that wasn't as academically rigorous as Lick, and then going into it, like I had like a lot of stress about like, oh, like what if I start to fall behind? Like what I feel that everyone else is like going ahead, and I guess I'm really thankful that the community at Lick is so supportive, and it isn't like I'm competing with other people in my classes. It's like we're all taking a class together, and like we're all struggling on the same assignment, we're all struggling on that same test. And so that's one of my favorite things, just everyone can just come together and support each other as you're going through a hard class.
Yeah, I second that one. And also the amount of opportunities there are here. A lot of like there's a lot of internships with the public purpose program. The center really helps you find places that you want to work at or just like help at. There's a lot of projects that you can go on. For example, like the hackathon I'm planning. I'm not actually really into coding or anything, but like someone asked me to join and I've learned a lot doing it. I'm an admissions intern, which I never thought I would do until I just got to like go to open houses, and I've learned a lot, like how to organize stuff and with groups, and like with classes, they just really push you to do all these interesting projects and learn all these things. And with sports, because there's a no cuts policy, you can kind of try out anything you want to. And yeah, there's just so many opportunities that you can take and kind of just grow from.
I'd say I'd have to piggyback both off of Taya and Briggs with mainly the community. I think ever since I came to Lick, I always felt like, of course, I was a little nervous at the start, but after a while, I was starting to meet people who I really felt like, okay, I can like imagine myself talking to these people for like the rest of the year. Like, and I think being able to think that like in the first like month is really like a kind of like an eye-opening experience. And it's not even just with the students, but it's also with the teachers. Like the teachers kind of somehow they do this thing where they make it feel like they're on like your level. And I think that's a really hard thing for like the teacher like or like staff to do, because whenever like you're a student talking to a teacher, you feel like they're like above you in a way. But I feel like with Lick, they do this thing where like they kind of bring themselves down so that they feel like a lot more relatable and they feel a lot more like open, so that if you feel like you're struggling or anything, you can just go to them. They have hours where they are available, especially with math. I think that was one of the biggest things for me, like learning that there is a math cafe. That helped me a lot, just going there with my friends, going over the homework just in case we had this big test or quiz. Yeah, I think overall it's just the ability for people to cut time out for you without making it seem like you're a burden. So
Amazing. Okay, last question for everyone. If you could use 3 words to describe Lick, what 3 words you can use? You can only use 3 words. However, I will grant you 1 hyphenated word, but you can only use 1 hyphen and 1 word on either side of the hyphen. So if one of your words is mind-blowing, you can use that as one of your words. Also, don't be afraid to repeat. Sometimes folks, feel like they need to use a unique word, but you don't have to use it. You don't have to use a unique word. Popcorn, anybody?
I guess just to end that note of Tarek had, for me would be community sticks together. And that's what we're trying to do here at Lick, is to develop together and to be the best we can be.
I guess I do opportunity for growth. I guess because I feel like that like going into like people are coming from all these different places, and it's just like a space where people can like come together and like just kind of grow as people, as students, and all aspects of their lives.
I would say curiosity, exploration, and community.
I would say definitely community. I think that just cannot not be mentioned. I'd say drive, because I think a lot of the students at Lick have this drive to improve and do better when it comes to socialness, but also academic stuff. And the third one I'd say is vulnerability. Yeah.
I would say passion. I think like everyone here I've noticed has like a particular niche that they're very passionate about, whether it's like D&D or Formula One or like geometry or English. And then I mean, yeah, community, like the community here is very very unique. Like at my very small school, like everyone was connected with each other, and I was very scared I would lose that family like essence of school, which really made me enjoy learning. But somehow it transferred into a bigger setting. And then also, I guess just like mistakes, but not in like there's a lot of mistakes, but like kind of like learning from mistakes and like being able to safely make mistakes and then grow from them. I think those are my 3 words.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, everyone, and spending a part of your Saturday out to share a little bit more about your Lick experiences. Everyone else that's on the call, thanks for joining us. I know we're a little bit over time and I couldn't get to everyone's questions, but I really encourage you to utilize or connect with the Tiger Ambassador Program to get some of your questions answered. And when you come to campus to ask those questions of any of our students or anyone on campus. We're looking forward to getting to know you and the rest of your family through the process. Hope to see you soon. Bye. Have a good weekend.